Picture this: 1,000 tiny cracks in a glass pane, invisible until the light hits just right, and suddenly you see the whole thing is ready to shatter. That's how I've been feeling lately, though I couldn't tell you when it started. My name's Isabel, and at 47, I'm standing in the middle of a life I built brick by brick, wondering if I ever stopped to ask myself what I was building for. I've got a husband, Nathan, who's been by my side for almost 2 decades. He's the kind of man you'd call a rock. Steady, kind, always there when the storms roll in. But even rocks can feel cold to the touch after a while, you know? Our marriage isn't broken, not in the ways you'd expect. No screaming matches, no slammed doors, no hidden secrets spilling out in the dead of night. It's just quiet. Too quiet. Like we've settled into a rhythm so predictable, I could set my watch to it. I look around our suburban home, and it's all so familiar, I could walk through it, blindfolded. The couch in the living room sags in the middle, its faded gray fabric worn thin from years of us sitting side by side, watching reruns of shows we've seen 100 times. There's barely a word between us during those hours, just the hum of the TV and the occasional clink of a glass as one of us sips water or wine. The kitchen clock ticks relentlessly, a sound I've stopped noticing until moments like this, when I'm alone with my thoughts. It's an old thing, brass and heavy, a wedding gift from Nathan's aunt that neither of us had the heart to replace. The air carries a faint whiff of lavender from the diffuser on the counter, a habit I picked up years ago to mask the staleness of routine. This house, it's safe. It's ours. But sometimes, I catch myself staring out the window at the neat rows of identical homes on our street, wondering if I've ever lived anywhere that felt like mine. Nathan, though, he's the kind of man who fills a room without even trying. Not with noise or bravado, but with this quiet strength that makes you feel like everything's going to be okay, even when it's not. He's got tired eyes, the kind that have seen too many long days at work, and a gentle smile that always seems a little sad, like he's carrying something he'll never say out loud. I've watched him over the years, noticing the way he notices things. Like how he'll set a cup of tea on the table for me without asking if I want one, or how he'll pause at the doorway sometimes, just looking at me as if he's trying to figure something out. I've always told myself it's love, that quiet attention of his. But it's also a cage, isn't it? Not one he built on purpose, but one I've let myself stay in because it's easier. So there I was, sitting on that sagging couch in our living room, the faint glow of the TV casting shadows across the walls. The murmur of some late-night talk show host droned on, a background noise I barely registered. In my hands, a warm mug of chamomile tea, the steam curling up in lazy wisps, grounding me in the moment. I was lost in my own head, as I often am these days, when Nathan shifted beside me. His presence, as always, was a quiet force. But tonight, there was something different in the air. He turned to me, his eyes catching the dim light, and his voice came out soft, but with an edge of certainty that made me sit up a little straighter. I want you to discover yourself, Isabel. Fully, without fear, without rules. I blinked at him, caught off guard. My first reaction was a nervous laugh, a shaky little sound that escaped before I could stop it. What was he talking about? My heart started racing, thumping hard against my ribs as I tried to make sense of his words. Was he saying I'm not happy? Or worse, was he the one who wasn't happy? I searched his face for clues, but all I saw was that gentle, sad smile of his, the one that always makes me feel like I'm missing something. His hand reached out and rested on mine, warm and steady, a familiar comfort. But those words, they felt like a challenge, a push toward something I wasn't sure I could handle. I opened my mouth to ask what he meant, my voice a little unsteady. Nathan, what are you getting at? He just smiled wider, a secretive little curve of his lips, and said, "You'll see. Trust me." That was it. No explanation, no elaboration, just those cryptic words hanging between us like a fog I couldn't see through. I sat there, the tea cooling in my hands, my mind spinning with questions. Trust him? Of course I trust him, but trust him to do what? To lead me where? I spent the rest of that night tossing and turning, replaying his words over and over, trying to crack the code of what he was really saying. The next morning, over a hurried breakfast of toast and coffee, Nathan dropped another bombshell. He looked at me across the kitchen table, his eyes bright with something I couldn't quite name, and said, "I'm taking you somewhere special tonight. Be ready by 7. My stomach did a little flip. "Where?" I asked, but he just shook his head, that same mysterious smile playing on his lips. "You'll see," he repeated, and I felt that familiar mix of curiosity and dread settle in my chest. All day, I couldn't focus on anything else. I went through the motions, washing dishes, folding laundry, answering a few emails, but my mind was elsewhere. Was this about us? Had I missed some sign that our marriage was in trouble? Had I failed him in some? As the clock ticked closer to 7, my nerves were a tangled mess. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down the simple navy dress I'd chosen, wondering if I was overdressed, underdressed, or just plain clueless about what I was walking into. Nathan appeared behind me, his reflection catching my eye with that same quiet intensity. He didn't say much, just rested a hand on my shoulder for a moment before guiding me out to the car. The drive was silent, the kind of silence that presses against you, heavy with unspoken questions. I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets of our suburb give way to narrower, less familiar roads, until we pulled up to a nondescript building tucked away from the main drag. It looked unassuming from the outside, almost forgettable, with faded brick and a single unmarked door. My heart thudded as Nathan parked, and I turned to him, searching for some hint of what was coming. He just gave me a reassuring nod, his eyes soft but unreadable, and said, "We're here." Stepping inside, I was hit by an unexpected warmth. The air was different in here, softer somehow, carrying a faint scent of sandalwood that wrapped around me like a whisper. The interior was nothing like I'd imagined. Plush rugs covered the floor, their deep reds and golds catching the flicker of candles scattered on low tables. The lighting was dim but inviting, casting gentle shadows on the walls. I felt my shoulders loosen just a fraction, though my mind was still racing. Before I could ask Nathan anything, a small group of people approached, men and women of different ages, their faces open and kind. They didn't introduce themselves with names, just warm smiles, and I realized I didn't need to know who they were individually. It was their collective presence that struck me, this sense that they'd been expecting me. Not as a stranger or someone to be judged, but as someone they'd been waiting to welcome. They spoke in voices that felt like a balm, low and soothing, asking questions that seemed simple on the surface, but cut straight to the core. "What do you feel right now, Isabel?" one of them asked, their tone gentle but piercing. "What do you want?" another added, their eyes holding mine with an intensity that made me squirm. And then, the one that stopped me cold. "Where are you?" I didn't know how to answer. Physically, I was right there, standing in this strange, warm room, but emotionally, mentally, I had no idea. They guided me to a circle of soft cushions on the floor, and I sat, feeling the weight of their gazes on me. Nathan was nearby, but he didn't join the circle. He stayed on the edge, watching with that same quiet patience. I wanted to ask him what this was, why he'd brought me here, but the words wouldn't come. I just sat, silent, my hands fidgeting in my lap, overwhelmed by the unfamiliar sensation of being truly seen. Hours passed, Or at least it felt like hours. Time seemed to blur in that space, the candlelight flickering as my thoughts churned. I didn't speak at first, couldn't find the words to match the storm inside me. But the group didn't push. They just waited, their presence a steady anchor while I wrestled with emotions I didn't even have names for. And then, without warning, something broke. It started as a tightness in my chest, a pressure I couldn't ignore, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. Hot, messy, unstoppable tears. I cried for the life I hadn't lived, for the dreams I'd tucked away in some forgotten corner of myself, because they seemed too big, too risky. I cried for the anger I'd turned inward, blaming myself for never asking what I truly wanted. And then, through the sobs, a laugh broke free, a raw, jagged sound that startled even me. It was freeing, like shaking off chains I hadn't known I was wearing. The group didn't flinch. They didn't rush to fix me or fill the silence with empty words. They just held space, their eyes full of understanding. Here I am, still in this dimly lit room, the warm glow of the candles flickering like tiny heartbeats against the walls. The group around me, their presence is like a quiet hum, a steady rhythm of encouragement that I can feel even when no one speaks. I've moved away from the circle for a moment, pacing in a small corner of the room, my sneakers scuffing softly against the plush rug. My mind is a whirlwind, a storm of questions that I can't seem to pin down. What does it even mean to discover myself? I've spent so many years being who I thought I needed to be. For Nathan, for our life together, for the world that always seemed to expect something specific from me. But now, standing here, I'm not sure I even know who that person is anymore. Am I betraying Nathan by even thinking about this? By considering a version of myself that might not fit into the life we've built? Or worse, am I betraying who I've always been by daring to question it at all? The thoughts loop endlessly, each one heavier than the last, and I can't find a way to stop them. My hands are clammy, slick with nervous sweat as I rub them together, trying to ground myself. There's a tightness in my chest, like a band pulled too tight, making every breath feel shallow and sharp. I catch myself holding my breath sometimes, only noticing when my lungs burn and force me to gasp. My legs feel restless, itching to move, to run maybe, though I don't know where I'd go. Every time I think about stepping back into that circle, about facing whatever this process is, my breath catches in my throat, a little hitch of fear that I can't shake. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I step forward and find out I've been wrong about everything? About myself? About my marriage? About the quiet, safe life I've clung to for so long? I glance over at the group, still seated on those soft cushions, their faces calm and patient. Nathan is there too, on the edge of the room, watching me with that same steady gaze. I wonder what he's thinking, if he can see the chaos inside me right now. I want to ask him, to demand answers about why he brought me here, but something keeps me silent. Maybe it's the fear of what he might say, or maybe it's the part of me that knows this isn't about him. It's about me. My pacing slows, and I stop, leaning against the wall for a moment, feeling the coolness of it through my thin sweater. The sandalwood scent in the air is still there, lingering, and I try to focus on it, to let it anchor me. But my heart keeps racing. Then I see her approaching. A woman from the group, one of the facilitators, with kind eyes that seem to see right through the mess of my thoughts. She moves with a quiet grace, her steps deliberate but unhurried, and when she reaches me, she doesn't say much at first. She just stands there, giving me space, until finally she speaks in a voice so gentle it almost startles me. "Are you ready to trust yourself, Isabel?" Her words hit me like a wave, cutting through the fog of doubt that's been clouding my mind. Trust myself? I haven't done that in years, maybe ever. I've trusted routines, expectations, the safety of predictability, but myself? That feels like foreign territory. Yet, as I look into her eyes, something shifts inside me. It's not a grand epiphany, not some dramatic moment of clarity, but a quiet resolve, a tiny spark of something I can't quite name. I nod, though my legs are trembling beneath me, and I manage a shaky, "I think so." She smiles, just a small curve of her lips, and gestures toward the circle. I take a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs a little more fully this time, and I walk back with her, my steps hesitant but determined. The group welcomes me without fanfare, just a few nods and soft smiles, as if they've been waiting for me to make this choice all along. As I settle back into the circle, the soft cushions beneath me feel like a grounding force, holding me steady, even as my heart races with a mix of fear and anticipation. The candlelight dances in the dim room, casting a warm glow over the faces around me, each one radiating a quiet patience that somehow makes me feel safe. I take a deep breath, the scent of sandalwood filling my lungs, and I realize I'm at a crossroads. There's no turning back now, not after the tears, not after that raw, unexpected laugh that broke through my defenses. I've already cracked open a door I didn't even know was there, and now I have to step through it. One of the facilitators, a man with a calm, steady voice, speaks up, guiding us into the next part of this journey. He asks us to share something we've never told anyone, something we've kept locked away, hidden even from those closest to us. My stomach tightens at the thought. I've spent decades building walls around the parts of me I deemed too messy, too vulnerable, too unworthy of being seen. Even Nathan, with all his quiet strength and unwavering presence, doesn't know some of the things I've buried deep. But as I look around at these strangers who somehow don't feel like strangers anymore, I sense an invitation, a chance to lay down the weight I've carried for so long. I hesitate at first, my throat tight, my hands fidgeting in my lap. But then I start to speak, my voice trembling, but growing steadier with each word. I tell them about the dreams I had as a young girl, dreams of traveling the world, of painting landscapes in far-off places, of living a life so vibrant and free that it scared me even to imagine it. I confess how I let those dreams slip away, piece by piece, because I thought they were impractical, because I was afraid of failing, because I didn't believe I deserved them. I share the fear that's haunted me for years, that I've disappointed everyone, including myself, by playing it safe, by choosing a life of predictability over one of passion. And I admit the deepest, darkest thought of all, that sometimes, in the quiet moments, I've wondered if I'm even capable of being truly happy, if I've forgotten how to feel anything beyond the numbness of routine. As the words spill out, raw and unpolished, I feel a strange lightness, like I'm shedding layers of armor I didn't realize I was wearing. The group listens without judgment, their eyes soft, their nods encouraging. Someone reaches out and places a hand on my arm, a gentle grounding touch that feels like permission to keep going, to keep being honest. Another person offers a reassuring pat on my shoulder, and it's as if they're saying, "We see you, and it's okay." For the first time in forever, I don't feel the need to hide. I don't feel the weight of expectation pressing down on me. I'm just me, flaws and fears and all, and it's enough. The facilitator then guides us into a deeper exercise, something he calls a moment of connection. He explains that it's about allowing ourselves to be held, not just emotionally, but physically, in a space of trust and consent. My initial reaction is a jolt of discomfort. Physical closeness with people I barely know feels so far outside my comfort zone. The old Isabel, the one who lived by rules and restraint, would have balked at this, would have found a polite way to opt out. But I'm not her anymore, not in this moment. I'm someone new. Someone who's tired of hiding. Someone who's ready to feel. So, I agree. My voice barely above a whisper as I give my consent. We pair off, and I'm with a woman from the group, her eyes kind and steady as she asks if I'm okay with this. I nod, and we sit facing each other, close enough that I can feel the warmth of her presence. She reaches out slowly, her movements deliberate, and places her hands on my shoulders, a light but firm touch. Then, with my permission, she pulls me into a gentle embrace. It's not invasive, and in that moment, something inside me unravels. It's not just the warmth of her arms around me, but the realization that I've been starving for this kind of connection, this raw, human touch that asks nothing of me but to be present. I let myself lean into it, my breath hitching as I feel the weight of years of isolation melt away, just for a second. My eyes close, and I'm aware of every sensation. The softness of her sweater against my cheek, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the faint hum of voices around us. I don't know how long we stay like that, but when we finally pull apart, I feel different. Lighter, somehow. Like I've taken a step into a version of myself I didn't know existed. The session winds down after that, the group sharing quiet words of gratitude and encouragement. I look over at Nathan, still standing on the edge of the room, his expression unreadable, but his eyes locked on mine. There's a flicker of something there. Pride, maybe, or relief. And it makes my chest tighten in a new way. I'm not sure what he's thinking, but I know I'm not the same woman who walked into this building hours ago. I've crossed a threshold, and there's no going back. As we prepare to leave, I feel a strange mix of exhaustion and energy coursing through me. My limbs are heavy, like I've run a marathon, but my mind is buzzing, alive with thoughts and possibilities I hadn't dared to entertain before. I say goodbye to the group, their faces now etched into my memory as part of this turning point, and I follow Nathan toward the door. Stepping outside, the cool night air hits my face like a slap, sharp and bracing after the warmth of that intimate space. It's a shock to my system, but a welcome one, pulling me back into the real world with a jolt. I take a deep breath, letting the crispness fill my lungs, and I realize I feel more awake than I have in years. Exhausted, yes, but alive in a way that's almost electric. I spot Nathan by the car, his silhouette framed under the faint glow of a streetlight. He's a familiar anchor in the midst of all this newness, standing there with his hands in his pockets, waiting for me as he always has. My heart starts pounding as I approach him, a nervous rhythm that I can't quite control. What does he think of me now? Does he see the change in me? The way I've started to peel back the layers I've hidden behind for so long? I'm not sure if I'm ready for his judgment, or worse, his disappointment. My steps slow as I get closer, my sneakers scuffing against the pavement, and I feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me again. But when I finally reach him, he doesn't say a word at first. He just looks into my eyes, searching, like he's trying to read every thought I've ever had. There's no judgment there, no expectation, just a quiet intensity that makes my breath catch. Then, without breaking eye contact, he reaches out and takes my hand. His grip is steady and warm, a lifeline in the cool darkness, and it grounds me in a way I didn't know I needed. We stand there for a long time, the silence stretching between us. But it's not the heavy, oppressive silence I've grown used to. It's something else. Something softer, filled with unspoken understanding. I can feel the roughness of his palm against mine, the slight tremor in his fingers that tells me he's feeling this moment just as deeply as I am. My eyes start to sting, tears pricking at the corners, but I blink them back, not wanting to break whatever fragile thing is building between us. Finally, he speaks, his voice low and soft, almost a whisper carried by the night breeze. I see the woman you finally found. And I love her even more. Those words hit me like a wave, crashing over me with a force I wasn't prepared for. Relief floods through me, warm and overwhelming, mingling with a gratitude so deep it aches. Tears spill over now as I embrace my mother, feeling the weight of her acceptance lift from my shoulders, knowing that love has truly found its way home. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.